Alright, so let's talk blades because that's what we're into. Today I have for you guys a knife that I was forced to buy. And I have to say, I don't know if this is one of the many. As you can see, it's not here. It's just my sword cleaning kit, wooden lid to the box that you guys normally see. You guys are probably wondering what this is. This isn't a stand. This is actually a box or a lid to a wooden samurai katana sword cleaning kit. It's quite old, but I like using it as a prop to hold things up and to keep things steady on my channel, just in case you guys are wondering what this is. The blade that I'm talking about, sorry I trailed off there for a minute because I know you guys are wondering what the heck this is or why you don't see the blade, so I'm just going to bust it out. You guys probably already know what it is. It is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And yes, I just did the spider flick on that. I do not do spider flicks on any of my Spyderco knives, even though I am a Spyderco collector. But what I can tell you is the reason why I don't do the Spidey flick on all of my Spyderco knives is because not only is it something that you kind of have to learn how to do, but it's also kind of tricky to do because almost every Spyderco knife is slightly different because the models are always... They're just different. None of them have the same traits other than the Spidey hole and this little Spyderco emblem and the writing that you see at the base of the blade where the ricasso is. Not all Spyderco knives are able to be Spidey flicked. And what I mean by that is, if you're a Spyderco fan, you know that a Spidey flick means this, doing just that. I can only do that with this knife. That's a sign. This is a great knife. Spyderco Paramilitary 2, Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is the type of knife that it's perfect for EDC. This isn't going to necessarily be a review on the knife. Well, it's going to kind of be, but mostly not. This is kind of my thoughts on this particular knife and why I think any knife enthusiast, blade collector, should have one of these. It is a very, very, very great EDC. It's not too big, it's not too small. At least for me, everybody knows that I carry humongous blades. And if it's too small to my liking, I obviously do not carry it. I was forced to buy this knife. Now, when I said I was forced, a buddy of mine was telling me about this knife. He said, if you're a true Spyderco fan, you have got to own a Paramilitary 2. And I told him, I was like, no, I don't want to own a Paramilitary 2 because it's so off. And he goes, what do you mean it's so off? And I'm like, it's off. Just look at the picture. The blade's smaller than the handle. The blade to handle ratio is just weird to me. He looked at me and he tilted his head. And with an expression that I can only describe as, what's wrong with you, you moron, type of expression. I told him that I only like knives that have a 4-inch blade or 4-inch reach. I don't like smaller knives, and particularly if I do carry around a smaller knife, I have to carry a bigger knife to couple it to make it even because I just feel weird carrying small knives. I carry big knives. And I go on and on about my own opinions about the reasons why I feel I shouldn't buy this knife. And he looked at me and he literally slapped me. Like, he didn't like slap me like full on, you know. I mean, he did a playful kind of joking, like, tapped me on the cheek with 3 fingers, you know, just kind of like, what's wrong with you? I looked at him and I was like, I just don't see it. He goes, I will buy this for you, and it is going to be for you. If you like it, you will pay me back. If you don't like it, I will return it personally. So it is not on you to purchase this knife. And of course I said yes. This was a few years back, before this particular person moved to another state. And I told him, yeah, sure, whatever, whatever you want to do, dude. And I told him, I was like, look, you're buying a second one for yourself. I don't care for the Paramilitary too. And he goes, dude, it's because you haven't even had it in your hand. And I always told him, I was like, yeah, well, once you get a blade in your hand, your opinions change, your thoughts change, your feelings change, whatever. And he was right. So he ordered it. It got to him. I completely forgot we even had the conversation. I went about my day, or I should say went about my 2 weeks, just normal. And he came up to me with a red spyderco box, and he practically tossed it at my chest. I mean, it was taped. It wasn't, He tossed it at my chest. It made a thud, and I caught it with both hands. I looked at him, and I was like, dude, what the hell? You're throwing knife boxes at me now? He looks at me, and he goes, there's your Paramilitary too. And I said, you, mine? And he goes, yes, you owe me. And I was like, wait. I never agreed that I would buy this off of you. He looked at me, and he says, you will. You will. And he turned around and he walks away. So I took it out the box, and this pocket clip was actually up. It was up here on this side. So it was a tip-down carry configuration. So it was like this the entire time. And I bet that's because they designed it so that way when you pull it out the pocket, all you gotta do is spidey flick it open, and bam, you got yourself a kniffy, which is great, but I don't like tip-down carry. So I went ahead and swapped the pocket clip so it's tip-up right-hand carry only, because that's how I like my knives, and I threw it in my pocket. I carried it for a couple of days. No event, I didn't really need to pull it out to cut anything at the time. I went to Carl's Jr. I sat down, had a burger, and I forgot I even had this knife. After I got done with my meal, I went to my car and I sat down, and I started fidgeting with this thing. I took it out, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize I even switched knives. It was because normally when you get a new knife, you got to get used to the size and the weight. This didn't feel like anything in my pocket. I completely forgot about it. It was that light. And it sat in my pocket in a way where it wasn't too wide, wasn't too short. It was just right. This is like the just right knife, about the whole Three Bears and the porridge thing, like one was too hot, one was too cold, one was just right. This is like the just right porridge. Now, that sounds really stupid, but this spyderco, I got to admit, this is one of those knives that kind of got me smiling. If you have a taste for spyderco knives, this is one that you have to own if you don't have it. I came around to it, so maybe a few days after that, I was fidgeting around with it and, playing with the compression lock and kind of getting used to thumb flicking it open. And it's not as satisfying as you do the spidey flick on this thing. Even that's kind of dangerous because I almost dropped it just there. But I was spidey flicking it so much and playing with it and flipping it and just fidgeting with it and, doing that thing, which I do it a lot better. I just didn't want to hit the tripod that's right here. The compression lock is just so awesome. It's one of those, you pinch it and your fingers are out of the way of the blade, the path of the blade, while you close it. I love that about the compression lock. There's so much to like about this knife. I mean, yeah, the blade to handle ratio still kind of bothers me a little bit, because if you look, the thing is huge, but it fits your entire hand. The jimping is all in the right places. You got jimping right around here where it needs to be, and here if you need to choke up. If you need to, you don't really need to, but it has that 4-inch reach from the pivot to the tip. Of course, 3.5-inch cutting edge, but this is still one of those knives that you can appreciate if you just like a simple EDC that's not too big, not too small, not too heavy. This is one of those knives you just gotta have. And the blade steel's great. CPM S30V, that's great blade steel. I really enjoy this thing. And of course, Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. It's just one of those knives. The ergonomics on this thing are fantastic. It's comfortable, it's light, it's slicey, it's just right. It's just right. It's one of those knives that you just love to hate and then hate to love all at the same time. So with that said, back to the story. I carried it for a few more days, and my buddy came up to me and he looks at me and he goes, all right, well, it's time to go ahead and make that refund. And I looked at him and I was like, whoa, oh, now you want to make the refund? And he looks at me and he goes, oh, so you don't want to do a refund, you like the Para 2? And I looked at him and I said, yes, I do like the Paramilitary too. And he goes, so I told you, I frickin' told you, dude. And we both laughed, and I said, yeah, no, it is a great knife. And he goes, for a dude like you who likes bigger blades, there's nothing not to like about the Paramilitary 2. And I am a big blade guy, but this doesn't bother me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the extended reach that makes it feel like it's a bigger knife. But you're only going to use this part of the knife for cutting anyways if you do have a full 4-inch blade, so it's not really like you're going to use that other half down there. You're going to be using most of the top. It's just great. I'm not going to trail off into that, but everything is. It seems like this is like the right knife. Spider hole is easy to get to, thumb, or if you want to, spidey flick, or if you want to, it's just good if you want to do the whole handle flick open thing if you're that type of guy, which I don't really like doing too much myself. The locking mechanism is great. It's sturdy. There's no blade play on this thing whatsoever, left, right, up, or down. It's sharp. And what led me to want to carry this knife, and I gotta be completely honest with you, was the fact that I was looking for a knife that was in between a knife that's not too long, not too heavy, and not too scary looking. Because I own a lot of scary looking knives, and I love the intimidation factor it has. But this is also intimidating. You pull out a knife of any kind, this is still one of those knives where you're like, whoa, that thing looks kind of sharp, One of those you look at it from a distance, you're like, yeah, that looks like it can cut me. But it doesn't look like, this guy's pulling it out, he's an axe murderer. But this is still one of those great EDCs that's good for any task. Any task. I have to admit, this is great for any task. And it still performs very well. It carries very great, and the ergos are fantastic. So, and it's sharp. It's super sharp. I did something stupid before I started carrying this thing, because I carried it for a little bit and then I put it away. I hardly ever used it for cutting. So I took it out of the box and I went to go do a spidey flick. I was a little tired at the time, so I didn't have a good grip. So when I did that, I actually lost grip of my finger and it fell straight down like woo, and it landed right on top of something around this section of blade, and you can kind of see it, maybe not. There it is, right where my finger is right here. You can kind of see there's just a little bit of burr, because the way it landed on something that was uneven, and it caused it to have a little bit of a bend or a little bit of a burr on the actual sharpened edge, which was my stupid idea. I was tired and I just wanted to, but then I was like, you know what, I don't carry this. I should carry this. And it's such a joy to carry. Fantastic, in my opinion, the perfect EDC. So with that, ring off. This is one of those knives that I have to say Spyderco just made a knife that cannot really surpass any other if you're just looking for a good EDC that's, in my opinion, perfect. This is one of those knives, in my personal opinion. You know, there are always these other knives. If you want something that looks menacing, get the menacing knife. If you want something that's a tool knife, get the tool knife. If you want a multi-tool, get the multi-tool. But this knife seems like the kind of knife that has all of those things in one. So, I would say hats off, but I don't wear a hat, so ring off to Spyderco for this knife. Fantastic build. Perfect, in my opinion. And yes, if something were to ever happen to this knife, I'd be pretty bummed out, because that means I would have to spend another 150, I think it was this, 151 and change now is what the price tag is on Amazon. But I want to carry it. It's one of those knives that you just want to carry. Anyways, folks, that's my story about this and my personal opinion. If you are a knife collector, or if somebody that you know needs a good present and you don't know what to get them, and you know that they're into knives and they don't have this, get it for them. They'll appreciate it. Even if they seem like they wouldn't, because that's how I was. Thanks again. I'll see you guys in the next one.